this is the Wrestling Mat. Good afternoon, or good morning, or good evening, whatever you're watching, wherever you're watching from. I appreciate that. We do indeed have a global audience here at thewrestlingmatshow.com. Always right above Todd. Shout out to you guys for joining us once again. Shout out to always here being with us every weekday at 1 p.m. Eastern, as we always do here at thewrestlingmatshow.com. Appreciate all of the new subscribers. Seen quite a jump. Bobby Lashley, thanks for the piece of news this week. What up to WWE for Life? What up to Phil? How you guys doing? As always, and I'll remind everybody, Super Chats get you to the front of the line. We love to have you, and memberships are also available. Some people are taking that plunge with us. They start at $2.99. We have 3 tiers right above Todd. Hello, Todd. The mid-card and the main event. But any tier will get you back here next Saturday for SummerSlam. Any tier. And if you want to be part of that, they start at $2.99. You can watch SummerSlam right here with me and other members at thewrestlingmatshow.com. So check out those membership tiers. We'll talk more about that coming up a little bit later on. We're blowing through. We'll be at 4,200 subscribers by probably end of today. I appreciate that. Also, for those of you who are members, guess what you get now? Emojis. Everyone loves an emoji. If you're on FaceTime, you do this thing or whatever, you get emojis. Well, guess what? If you're a member during these live chats, you can use emojis in the chat of my in the chat of my face. Okay, happy? Go ahead, do an emoji. Excited? There's a face for that. Check it out now. There's my emoji. I'm literally getting some of this information as we start. Check it out now, and you can sign up for a membership live while you're watching the show. And check it out in the description below. I know we're going to pop that up here in a second, but there are emojis that you can now use. So become a member. It starts at $2.99. We have 3 levels, but any membership tier before SummerSlam gets you to watch SummerSlam with me next Saturday right here at thewrestlingmatshow.com. So definitely go check that out. Thewrestlingmatshow.com, our YouTube page. And make sure you're following us on social media, WrestlingMat23. On both Twitter and Instagram, and of course, me at the Matt Camp. And by the way, if you get into the Matt tier, the Matt event tier, I should say, we will follow you on our social medias from Instagram and Twitter, Wrestling Matt 23 and the Matt Camp. So you want to be followed by me? That's one of the perks of the tier. I am putting together some stuff for the mid tier and up level about the worst SummerSlam matches of all time. I'll also talk about, or maybe the worst SummerSlam main events of all time. We'll also do the top 5 SummerSlam matches of all time. That's going to be some bonus content if you're in the mid-card or in the Matt event tier. For those of you that are in the right above Todd tier, our base level tier, you're still going to get access to me and premium, prioritized comments from you come to me directly. We'll also be doing some discounts on our upcoming merch on that tier, and you'll have access to the AMAs I'm going to be doing. So all of that available. Go check it out at thewrestlingmatshow.com. And you can sign up during the show. And for those of you that are in the chat, use those new emojis if you're a member. And if you're not a member, sign up and become a member because we got a lot to cover here. This week alone, Monday, past episode, we went very, very in-depth on Bobby Lashley's impending exit from WWE, MVPs as well. My time working with Bobby Lashley. The promo he cut that not a lot of people saw and creative straight up ignored. That is available. The pitches for other wrestlers to be part of the Hurt Business. Covered that. My interactions with Bobby Lashley, where I thought creative failed him on multiple occasions. Very specifically, I think he was failed by creative in the current regime. Not a lot of people are saying that about what's going on right now. But Bobby Lashley is someone who I think, and I think he's kind of mentioned this, might have been better off under Vince creatively, not all the other stuff. Nobody wants to be under Vince. Creatively, I think Bobby Lashley was treated better under Vince versus Triple H. Paul Levesque. Go check that out. Also talked about this on a previous episode this week. The reaction of CM Punk landing on WWE Backstage. He didn't work for WWE, he worked for Fox, but how was that received? What pitches were there for him to actually appear on WWE programming? And why didn't they happen? Plus, what could happen between CM Punk and Stone Cold Steve Austin? That is there. That is available for you. WWE for Life 316. You're a new member. Congratulations, and thank you very much. I know you're here all the time. We're happy to have you as a member. More of that can be coming your way if you subscribe and you become a member. Make sure you're following. Make sure you're commenting. Make sure you're subscribing. I got a lot of comments to answer on this thing. It's been a very busy few days because of what we put up about Bobby Lashley. So I certainly appreciate those who have left comments. You'll get responses from me. I promise you that. Yesterday we covered how partnerships between WWE and other companies actually come to fruition. I would also say that I talked about why WWE partnerships will always be in WWE's control. We also covered the fact that, Tony Khan brought up the idea of, it would be wonderful to have a super show, but he is well aware that's not going to happen. I think from a talent standpoint, he'd love to be able to book that. If there was no political stuff, if there was no competition, I do believe the fan of Tony Khan would love to be able to do a super show, not only with WWE, but probably with everybody. And I know a lot of talent would love to be able to do that. The business of wrestling, Tony Khan being a businessman, Nick Khan being a businessman, Triple H being a wrestling businessman. Yeah, there's too much to work through. But a WWE TNA relationship, we're going to see where that continues to go. We're going to see, the footprint that WWE is trying to continue to expand globally. Obviously doing some work with Noah. AJ Styles going over and wrestling Marufuji. He's going to come over to SummerSlam and be a special guest commentator for the Japanese broadcast. Marigold. Io Sky working over there. Julia working over there before she's going to come over to NXT. What more can come of that? Talked about that a lot on yesterday's show. But today, we get to review Dynamite. And Dynamite was all about blood and guts. We'll start from the end and work our way backwards. I'll talk about the build for it because I have said I thought they were probably about. I said this morning on Busted Open. I was on with Tommy Dreamer. I'll be on, by the way, tomorrow with TNA champion Nick Nemeth and Thunder Rosa. There's an interesting group of people all working together. Me, Thunder Rosa, and Nick Nemeth. Looking forward to that. But Tommy Dreamer and I talked about this morning on Busted Open, and I said I thought the build for Blood and Guts was 1 to 2 weeks behind where it should have been. I thought the team should have been established earlier. I thought the promo that aired last night early in the show with the Acclaimed, with Mark Briscoe, with Swerve, and with Darby Allin, we hadn't seen them all together like that yet. We didn't see them all together until last night, and they were all mad at each other. Mark Briscoe conglomerated a peace treaty there, but I would want to, he talked about, they're trying to divide us and conquer. Well, they would have been doing that 2 weeks ago if that was the case. They didn't divide anybody. That team kind of just came together, and they were cool last week until this week where Swerve's talking about something. Darby gets yelling at him, and the Acclaimed are like, hey, we remember what you did to us, Swerve, and we want the young. Everybody had their own motivations. That's a promo that should have happened a week ago. You should have established the teams 2 weeks ago. And then last week, hey, let the Bucks, let's Jack Perry, let him dig the knife in a little bit. Let him poke and prod. Hey, wait, Swerve, didn't you wrestle the Acclaimed a bunch of times for the tag titles? When they beat you? Isn't Darby kind of a bigger deal? Let them do that. There was none of that happened. None of that was really done by the Bucks or Okada or Hangman, and that's a different story. But or Jack Perry, that they just kind of, it's like they skipped a step. So they cut that promo, and Mark Briscoe brings them back together. Okay, and they go to do the coin flip. And They let Bryce cut the promo. And he goes in and he explains what happens. And he opens the door, and there's Christopher Daniels laying at the feet of Okada and the Bucks and Jack Perry. Now, I didn't have a problem with Bryce ignoring that because he was concerned. He was by himself. That could be me. All right, I'll just follow along. So they bring out the coin, and Bryce doesn't check the coin. He has his own coin. It's very obvious what they were doing. But why? Bryce is not an idiot. And he's been unfairly maligned the last couple weeks. I don't understand that. But Bryce is not an idiot. And they just were like, here, flip this coin. And he did. And like, you knew what they're, oh, look, it's the same thing on both sides. We get the advantage. You could have done that with give me a slapstick distraction of something. Bryce got booked like he was supposed to be clueless and dumb, and he's not. He's a senior official. He's refereed the majority of the big matches in AEW history. Sure, the heels should always have the advantage in a match like that. Of course they should. But geez, can we not skip the parts where the heels get to like more smart, just a better way of cheating? Can we distract Bryce for a second when they get the coin out of his pocket or something? Nope. Just made him look dumb. I don't think you need to make a ref look incompetent. And you take out Christopher Daniels, who's an EVP. It was broadcast on the show. They're just allowed to do that? I realize as I'm talking through this, and I enjoyed the show last night, that this is going to come off that I'm being like, oh, the show stunk, blah, blah. It didn't. But man, stuff like that is maddening. It doesn't need to happen. They dump Christopher, like he's out. Now maybe there's more to it and he's actually in with them, or hey, maybe that was just a setup. Maybe that was just pretending that he got beat up. And in fact, he is buddies with the Young Bucks. And the fact that he is Tony Khan's interim EVP with Kenny out is a big ruse. And he's actually, Danielson with the Bucks. I don't know, maybe. But no punishment for that. You could just beat up an EVP, no problem. And the coin flip stands. And we all saw it. So then we get to the match. Nothing else really went down. I'll say it again. I say it. This looks good. It's a good looking visual with that giant cage. With the two, it looks good. It looks like a dangerous structure. It looks like a menacing structure. This was a really well done match. And it's not easy to raise the bar. This has happened with ladder matches. This has happened with cage matches. This has happened with other war games like matches. It's not easy to find new stuff to do. And too often, it's just generic brawling for generic brawl. Like I hated Six Sides of Steel with the two teams for TNA. It wasn't a big enough. It wasn't a big enough ring to work in. Didn't like that. This you have room. You can move around. They did the spots outside of the cage. They did the spots on the side of the cage, up the cage, in the middle. And a lot of it tied stories together. That was the whole thing. Yeah, I wasn't happy there weren't stakes on the match. And I guess there were forced stakes by the end of it. But everybody had gripes. There was a lot of heat between the opponents for various reasons. More some than others. But the main thing, and maybe this happened organically. Maybe this was the plan all along. Hangman and Swerve. Their interactions. Their potential interactions. That jumped off the page. So the elite side have the advantage. So Hangman's out last and he doesn't come out. Why? Because he doesn't care who's in the ring right now. He has no interest in the Acclaimed. He has no interest in Mark Briscoe. He has no interest in Darby Allin. The only reason he joined this team was to get after Swerve. His mind has been turned upside down by Swerve. Why would he come out to fight people he doesn't care about? Yeah, he cut the deal. He cut the deal to get to Swerve. So Swerve comes out and there's Hangman. I love that. What a different twist on things. I do not like when War Games teams get thrown together. I don't. And it's happened many times in the past, and WWE has done that. You know, the Bloodline thing, those 5 guys that faced the Bloodline a couple years ago, they all had gripes against them. But then some of the women's ones are like, you're a heel. You want to be in our heel team? All right, sure. But instead, man took the match to get to Swerve. And because of that, all he cared about was getting to Swerve. So he comes out there and he's beating him up and he handcuffs him and beats him up some more. And I love the camera caught everything. Meanwhile, it's still 4-4 in the ring and Matt Jackson's going, you got to get in here. We need you. But he doesn't care. He's ignoring him. He's still throwing punches. It's all about Swerve. Man, that's how you keep something personal. I talked about recently, and I said it again this morning on Busted Up. I love that AEW does not keep people with tunnel vision. WWE is doing a better job than they used to do with that. Just because you're feuding with one person or you have a match scheduled doesn't mean you're not thinking about something else. MJF's promo last night brings up Swerve. He should be thinking about that title. Everybody should. But Hangman's tunnel vision makes sense. He's blinded by that rage in the best way possible. Hangman going after Swerve and having to have his job threatened. And you know what? I was okay with him going, I got to get in there then. Because what has he talked about? His family. He was home with his family. When he was away, they suspended him. Nobody cared about what was going on with him. But if you threaten his job, you threaten his family, and that's something that is part of Hangman. So he had to get in that ring, and he had to go fight. And then it's 5-on-4. Until Billy Gunn and Jeff Jarrett come out to get him out of there. Because, and I'm going to get into Jeff Jarrett later, Jeff Jarrett has become the conscience of AEW. Veteran, self-reflecting, babyface Jeff Jarrett is one of the best characters in all of wrestling this year. I don't know if Meltzer or anybody does awards where it's, comeback of the year. It is Jeff Jarrett, number 1. And it made sense for him to come out. And it was also in Tennessee. Nashville, Memphis. That's Jeff. And Billy Gunn coming out to defend his, help his guys. And they took out Cutler, which is a good, and I don't say this often, use of Brandon Cutler. And they get him out of there, and then they get the pliers, which I believe were the same pliers that were used against Hangman at the start of this feud, and they cut his way into the ring. Cool, let's go. Now, before that, Matt Jackson gets the mic, and he gets to start the match because he's an EVP, even though everybody's supposed to be in the match. The power of the EVPs versus the power of Tony Khan needs to be addressed, or should have been addressed whatever. I don't get it. My easy fix is, if you want to say that the EVPs have power, which at this point is only Matt and Nick, because there's no Kenny, and Cody's the WWE champion, so it ain't him. They shouldn't be able to do anything in matches they're involved in. That's a simple fix. If you want to say they have power, okay. But they shouldn't have power over their own matches, because Tony should be able to step right in. He's right behind the curtain. Christopher Danielson was laid out. But you know, like, why is that allowed to happen? Why is he allowing it to happen? That still needs to be addressed. Because even Will Osprey had said, I went to Tony and Christopher Daniels and got this match made. All right, so they have power. But apparently the Bucks can rule in their own match, and they can start a match before it's supposed to start. Now, it didn't last that long. It's not that big of a deal. It didn't affect the match or the outcome. But everything that was done in that match, man, Anthony Bowens came out like a house of fire. I think there's a singles run in that guy. I think it's hard to step up the level of violence and step up just the fact that things haven't been done before. And I think they did that a lot in that match. I'm not a deathmatch guy. I never have been. I understand why people like it. It's obviously a draw. We had Matt Cardona on this show. Go back and watch that in the archives at thewrestlingmatchshow.com. Look what it did for him. But the way they did some of that stuff last night, the barbed wire usage, the staple guns, it wasn't over the top. But you know what? If you call the match Blood and Guts and it's in a steel cage and 2 rings and it's 10 guys and they all hate each other, you know what? People should come out looking worse for wear. And they did a good job of that. That staple gun thing when they went all around and then there was a staple gun in Okada's finger, which was the only thing that really happened to him. That was well done. The barbed wire stuff was well done. What I noticed, because if you're going to put that stuff on TBS or TNT, whatever, you heard some of the bleeps in the MJF Osprey stuff. They showed you everything in the Blood and Guts match. What I also did like is that it happened, but it wasn't like zoom in shots. Because I don't think they really want to show that at 9:45. You don't want to zoom in and see the staple on somebody's back or whatever. By the way, I got cut by my dog. I ran into her teeth when we were playing right before the show started. So I have a little bit of my own blood and guts in my head. I'm okay, though. Nobody wanted to zoom in on that. I'm not going to do that either. But they didn't do that. I think that was their way around how you could broadcast such a, for lack of a better term, barbaric match. You didn't zoom in. You didn't make a point to show that stuff. You showed it, but from afar. It doesn't take away the effect of it. And, you had the big table spot with Bowens on the outside. They took a nice zoom. They shot that match quite well. The only thing I nitpick about in terms of how that match was produced was when Hangman and Swerve come in, and Swerve takes out everybody. And Hangman's in one ring and Swerve's in the other, and they're going to meet. And when they went to meet, they took the out of the cage shot instead of taking the above shot. So we missed the initial impact. Little thing, but just those punches between the two. After Swerve had gotten destroyed by Hangman on the outside, he comes back in, and the crowd came up for that. And when I said, okay, there's a lot of money left in this. And what's interesting is that, listen, Hangman's going to be thinking about Swerve. How is he going to get to Swerve? Well, he had to win the Owen. So he had to wrestle Jeff Jarrett, and he had to wrestle Jay White, and he had to wrestle Bryan Danielson. It wasn't about beating those guys. It was about getting to Swerve. How is he going to get to Swerve? Well, I got to have these matches with people that are in my way. Well, he didn't win. And Bryan Danielson has the title match at Wembley. And that's weeks away. That's a month away. What does Hangman Doodle then? Well, he's going to probably... His motivation, no matter what, even after last night, is still going to be about getting to Swerve. You don't deserve this. You shouldn't have this. That's what he's yelling at him. They captured that beautifully on camera. No microphone, just capturing it. And I'll get to that, the use of the microphone in the match in a little bit. But when they came from one ring and the other, and the crowd was, there is a massive match there when they get back to them in the ring. I don't think they're going to get too far away from each other, but it was big. It felt big. It was big. So towards the end, Mark's hitting all those J drillers on everybody, and that lays them out. And that now sets up what happens at the end. Jack Perry's in the Raven spot. He takes the chair. A lot of conversation about an unprotected chair shot. I've talked to enough people in the last 5 or 6 hours. I don't know this for sure. Not every steel chair is made the same. Not every steel chair is a steel chair. It's interesting that some steel chairs, like the one we heard last night, sounded like one of those cookie sheets that don't hurt. I'm all for safety. We don't need unprotected headshots with steel chairs. Don't get too worried about that. As from enough people that I've talked to in the last few hours. Just think of it this way, okay? We haven't seen those chair shots in AEW. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, and I might have. It's been 5 years. I can't say I've seen everything. But there is a level of safety there. We know that's WWE got rid of them a while ago, and people were getting fined when they did them. Think about all the stuff they did last night. And we'll get to the gas and all that, but the barbed wire and the staple gun and everything that happened. When you're going to put that show on broadcast television, there's going to be some things that get approved or disproved or not allowed. Eddie Kingston has recently talked about the fact he wanted to do the Terry Funk gimmick with Flair with the bag over his head and was told no. Not doing it. Tony Khan talked about it too. Not doing it. And that's fine. My point is that there's stuff that gets approved and there's stuff that doesn't. I feel fairly confident saying that that chair shot was approved and was approved for a reason. Now, we find out that Jungle Boy has a concussion. A legitimate one? Okay. I'm just saying the safety police probably should do some extensive reporting before they file any charges. And by the way, if it wasn't a full-on steel chair, it didn't matter. The image still, the effect still was the same. There's gimmicks in movies and all that stuff, and hell, a couple weeks ago when Mina did the glass bottle on Tony, or whatever, Mariah, whatever the hell it was. The gimmick bottle. Who cares? I know people are like, oh, the Jungle Boy thing with the real glass. No, I'm not talking about that. But that stuff can be taken care of and it can still look good or sound good or have the desired effect. You don't watch a movie and then get on the internet and go, well, that chair was gimmicked. Blah, blah, blah. I got taken out of it because it was clearly a fake chair. Yeah, it's a movie. It's a TV show. Last night you watched a TV show. So I'm not going to go nuts about that one. Here's what I didn't like. That match built and built and built and built. And there was more violence and more violence and more violence in the best way possible. And then Darby, you knew where it was going. I got Jack Perry like this. Sorry. Like this. And you hit him with the chair. Which is the last shot he took. I want to note that. An unprotected chair to the head when he's chained up to the cage. Pretty big shot. And now Darby's got to find the gas. And I will say, and this happened, and this is a bummer, and I thought it was part of the reason it took away for the finish me. Darby got to going back and forth. Darby trying to go find the gas can. You could see him go over to Bryce trying to ask him where it is, and they douse him, and then he's got to go get the hand lighter and all that. It took long. And once again, you just hit Jack Perry in the head with a chair. That's what Mark Briscoe did. You put him in that spot. He's in trouble. But then you douse him with the gas. And then he gets a mic, and he goes over across that ring they were in to Matt Jackson. So the threat's not there. He's the one going back and forth. He's the one that's doing everything. And he's talking to Matt. And what I didn't like is there was so much talking. Like everything stopped. Also, Matt Jackson was talking like he hadn't just been through a 40-minute match or 35-minute match and all the stuff that happened to him. He was having a very regular conversation. That took me out of it a bit. I know you have to talk to one of the EVPs, but it didn't seem like he had been through a lot of strife. He was just talking. But Darby having to go back and forth, the threat's not there. It's talking. It was like somebody else should have been, like, let Darby yell across. Let Darby get the mic and go, I want you, you're giving me that TNT title shot. Then hand the mic to anybody else. Hand it to Max. Hand it to Mark. Let them keep the mic on Matt Jackson. Or maybe move everything a little bit closer to Jungle Boy, to Jack Perry. So the threat's there the whole time. There was too much back. It was so much talking. And I know you got to quit, right? That's the end. It's submission or you give up. And it went on too long. And for a match that had that much going and violence and built up and the swerve stuff with Hangman and weapons, and it ends with a lot of talking. It felt like an in-ring. It felt like an in-ring promo. It felt like when Mankind had Shane McMahon and was going to break his arm and wanted to get a title match heading into SummerSlam 99. Sure, that's a fine segment. It's not the match, though. And they give him the match. Okay. And okay, now you got to quit. All right, fine, we quit. Let's get out of here. Ding, 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 ding. And the crowd popped, but I think all of that took away from it. You didn't force anyone to quit because of them getting threatened. It was because somebody else. And there was so much, and the delay. I think it could have been a bigger reaction. And the other thing is, people wanted to see fire. You know why? Because they've already seen it. So now, instead of lighting Jack Perry's legs on fire, which they did, and he came back from way too quickly, the first time at the Anarchy in the Arena match, now you don't give that crowd, as baby faces, what they want. Fire. If the heels took it away from them and didn't let the fire happen, that's fine. But baby faces threaten the fire. Jack Perry's a piece of trash. He should be lit on fire based on the story. So the baby faces threaten the fire and don't actually get to do it. And that crowd wanted to see the flames because they were getting them from a baby face. They were going to be getting revenge on the elite, the EVPs. And instead it was a quit, and here is a title match for a secondary title. Ding, 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 ding. End of match. Really good match. I thought the ending left something to be desired. Now, you come out of that match, and what do you have? Oh, Phil, you're right. The Foley Shane thing is the night he wins the title. You're right. My bad. That's right. But didn't he do something with SummerSlam as well? I know that the arm threatening thing, that was when like China was in the anyway, that's a whole other thing. You're right. It was the tape show, the Worcester show. Thank you. 1499. Finger poke of doom and Mick winning the title with JR not on commentary. And Austin Pop. And all right, so coming out of Blood and Guts, what do we have? Well, Hangman still wants to get after Swerve, and I think Swerve wants Hangman. The Acclaim cut a promo after they're the number one contenders. They want the Young Bucks. We'll get that at All In. Mark Briscoe's got Roddy tomorrow night at Death Before Dishonor. Probably not talked about enough last night. Okay. Jungle Boy and Darby is going to happen for the TNT title at All In. Hangman mistakenly hit Okada with a buckshot. Somebody in here already said, I think it was Zach. My first thought was, what's Okada doing? What's Hangman doing? Hangman wants Swerve. He's not getting Swerve. Bryan Danielson's got Swerve. Well, you know a good way to get away from Okada being too funny? The next time we see him, he should be furious that happened to him at the hands of Hangman, his teammate. He should want Hangman. Hangman should be wrecking house trying to get to Swerve and then gets told, you know what? You screwed up. Now you have to wrestle Okada. Because Hangman is the definition of chaotic neutral right now. Hangman was not on the side of the Elite last night. He's not friends with them. He's not in the group. They suspended him. They've kicked him to the curb. Hangman was a hired gun because they needed him, and he needed their power to get to Swerve. They didn't win. He becomes expendable. He becomes someone who should have to pay for what he did. Right or wrong, he took out a member of his team. And that member of his team is the Continental Champion. And that member of his team should be featured on the biggest card of the year for the company. I'll take Hangman and Okada. I looked it up. It happened one time. Okada beat him in the G1 in 2018. That is their only one-on-one match. The dynamics between the two of them are far different. Put that match on the card. AEW are the best wrestle? Guess what? You could probably throw that on there randomly and people would be happy, but you built it a little bit last night. That's a good thing. You have Darby and Jack Perry. Now, you have to put a stip on that match. I just don't see how you do everything you do in that cage and you threaten fire. And, oh, by the way, Darby's coffin drop should be on AEW highlight reels forever. If they're going to go on Max, that should be the first thing that they show, is that dude climbing across that thing and the tress and just coming down like a sack of potatoes. That was, what an awesome visual. He was so quick getting up there. You know, listen, you got to be safe about that stuff, but he was moving, and he didn't, like, wait to balance. I mean, he got up there and dropped, and it looked friggin' awesome. That is a editor's dream. That's a social media team's dream, to have that kind of material handed over. That looks cool in anything. Any promotional stuff. Any opening show video packages. Hey, the AEW pay-per-view library is now on Max. Show that thing first. A little trailer. There you go. So they've taken it a lot of different places, and I appreciate that. It was a very good match. And it wasn't violence for the sake of violence. It wasn't walking and brawling just because, which gets boring. There was a lot going on. They built some good things. I didn't love the finish. I know they wanted to get to Darby and to Perry. But like for everybody else that went into that match, what does Swerve get out of that? What did the Acclaim get out of that? Anthony Bowens got dropped halfway off the cage through a bunch of tables. The only person that got something out of that match was Darby. They set up a match within the match. Literally. Not, well, after the fact, they literally set up another match within the match. That's how they finished it. If you tell me that on paper, that doesn't sound great. They could have done it quicker. And I think the match would have had a bigger pop at the end. The right team went over. I do want to see Tony Khan address the use of power by the Bucks. What happened to Danielson? The quarter, starting the coin, starting the match before Swerve even got in the ring. Then, of course, they had to use their power to give the title match. And maybe that was it. They knew the end. The Bucks would have to make a title match at a pay-per-view, so we have to show how else they have power. There's got to just be checks and balances. Tony's company. Tony, EVPs. He should be able to override everything. I just want that addressed. Why weren't the Bucks using their power sooner? Because they were baby faces? They've been heels before too. That still should be addressed. But for a match that didn't have actual stakes, they had a hell of a match. It was very entertaining. And I will say this as I was watching it. That match is not going to happen in WWE. Yes, they have War Games. But the level of what that match needs to get to be called Blood and Guts, if you're going to talk about and this goes for War Games, which has now become a Survivor Series thing. It goes for Blood and Guts. It's the same idea. But if you're going to build it up as this dangerous structure and this dangerous match, it's got to look like that. AEW is willing to go there. Warner Brothers Discovery is willing to let them go there. Also a good sign for something we'll talk about later. The match I watched last night is a way AEW can set themselves apart from WWE to be the alternative. We can do this. Look at who was in that match last night also, which is a really good sign. The heel side, Okada, New Japan, AEW. The Bucks, New Japan, Ring of Honor, AEW. Hangman, Ring of Honor, New Japan, AEW. Jack Perry, AEW. Major promotions, not like discounting PWG or whatever. Not a hint of WWE in any of those people. On the babyface side, Mark Briscoe, never given a real chance by WWE. Darby, got the hell away from Gabe and Evolve. Good move by him. The Acclaimed. Nope. Those are AEW guys. Now, Swerve's the only one. I don't think anybody looks at Swerve as a WWE guy, but he was the only one. So you very much had an AEW match with AEW people. And yeah, there's been, Jericho Appreciation Society, and Claudio's been in it, and Mox has been in it, Danielson's been in it, and Jericho's been, and that's fine. But I watched that match last night saying, this is AEW and only what they can do, at least based on the choices WWE's making. This right here is AEW setting themselves apart in a good way. This is being the alternative. And I've said this. They can take things from WWE and make it their own. Or take business practices and make them their own. But hey, stuff works. I've talked about WWE social media. I think AEW social media in terms of their videos. I think they started to shorten tweets, which is a good thing. But I think their team has, and I don't think there was a lack of talent, but I think the direction has been far better. I think it goes along with the fact that since Forbidden Door, and maybe in the couple weeks prior to that, I think the show has gotten back around where it should be. I think they're building up to their biggest show the way they should be building up to their biggest show. There's a lot of depth to the stories. They're adding depth. They're adding layers. That's great. And that's all working together. I hope we continue to see more media. MJF did media. The Bucks did media. Tony's always out there doing media. Hey, guess what? You probably want to move another 10,000 tickets. I don't know if it's going to happen, but you'd like to move a lot more tickets between now and when Wembley happens next month. Last year was a lot of Paul White and Jeff Jarrett doing media. I know OC did some stuff ahead of time and all that, but no Orange Cassidy on the show last night. Interesting. But I hope more of the prominent names are over on the other side and they're doing media and they're going to England and they're making those appearances because wrestling fans should want this show to do well. Now, the rest of the show. I don't know what the hell happened at the start of the show last night. Marvez is there. He's looking for Will. Will's got his bag. He's talking to Marvez. He goes to his car. There's a knife in his car. Marvez goes, I have a car. Okay, we could drive it. And they drive off. Why did they leave? Where were they going? Did Osprey get bad intel? Or I guess he didn't because he came back to the arena or he never left the arena. Was it like making... It was almost like it was a pre-tape put in the wrong spot or a pre-tape they were like, you know what, we're actually not going to use this. I don't understand anything about it. If someone can tell me what the point of it was, I'm not saying it was bad. It just didn't make sense in the story. So then they leave. And MJF comes out with the cheerleaders, and they have his name, and he does the whole thing with him. And I saw the MJF that should be out there. Oh, they were at the hotel? Is that what it was? Why were they at the hotel? Okay, fair. Then I missed it. Because I had a couple other people ask me. Why were they at the hotel? Why wasn't Will at the show already? I mean, that makes a little bit more sense. But why wasn't he there already? See, I get what they were doing because they wanted him to show up and they wanted him to get to MJ. Okay, fine. But why wasn't he there already? Why did they have Marvez with the camera at the hotel? What was the point of that? They've shown the entrances. They showed them at Forbidden Door. They've shown, like, they're doing the, and that's not just a WWE thing. Every sport does. They show the entrances. They've done that, and they always show people getting to the arena early. Why was Will late? Did MJF flip the fire alarm so he slept in? Shouldn't he want to get to MJF after last week? He was clearly pissed off. It's like they wrote it in so Max could cut his promo without getting interrupted. Right. Phil just said the same thing. But it's not. It's so atypical. Why was Marvez at the hotel? What was the point? Why would he be there? Why would you think Osprey's still there at 8 o'clock? I get it. Couldn't security have protected Max? Couldn't that have been a thing? I don't want to get touched. All right, you're the champ. You want. And then Osprey comes through the crowd. Anyway, It makes a little more sense being at the hotel. I just don't get. Sometimes you got to book backwards, and I understand that. And I'm sure somebody in their production meeting was like, wait, wouldn't Osprey come out before Max said all this stuff? That is a fair point. And it's like they threw that in after. It just, there was another way to keep Osprey out of there. I've been given assurances he's barred from the building, and because I'm the champion, I get my time. And you know what? I'm MJF. I've earned that. You can say that. And Osprey has to fight his way in. So Max cuts just not a regular, just a good heel promo. And he leans into being a heel. And he's not untouchable. I loved last week that he cheated to win. That he took an unreal match and got people pissed off at the finish. We should be talking about that match because of the finish, because Max cheated, because he took the shortcut, because he couldn't beat Will straight up. So he cheated, and that's why he won. And he was gassed. And the fact that you saw him look completely disheveled and have the oxygen on his face and holding up the top, he compared himself to Flair. I wouldn't bring that name up much anymore. That's a good look. That's a guy who then came out last night and was like, it was an easy win. That's great. That's what he should say. I don't want MJF to be overconfident. I don't want him to be untouchable. He's a heel. You should be able to get to him. He shouldn't be invincible. He's not 6'10 and 320. He doesn't have an entourage. He doesn't have a faction. He should be vulnerable. Heels should always be vulnerable. And they should talk like they're not. That's good. So MJF looking like he went through hell, looking like he survived, looking like he was almost the loser of that match, taking pictures with that oxygen still on him because he had been through so much with a guy who's got an endless tank in Will Ospreay. And MJF does too, but that's not the gimmick. I don't want to like that guy. I'm pissed he won. Everything he said last night was easy win. Look what I did. Mentioning Swerve. That was good. Hey, I got this, but also I want that because that was mine for 400 plus days. And then he reveals the American Championship, which, by the way, those side plates are so specifically aimed at Will and getting heat at Wembley. That one right there says the only country that matters. The other side of the title says better than Will and UK and something like that. It's a very Rocky-esque belt. It's also very specific to beating Will. Like those side plates are about Will and the UK. And you know what? That's what it should be until Wembley. Change them up after that if you want to. MJF should get booed out of the building. And Will should get the biggest pop of the night. That's at least what they're trying to do. So he does all that stuff. He runs down his grandmother. Probably a little too much cheap heat, but whatever, it's fine. And then Osprey comes out, and what does Max do? He runs. He retreats. He's scared because he knows in a one-on-one, deep down, he can't beat Will without cheating. So he bailed. And Osprey comes through the crowd. Anytime a babyface comes through the crowd, it's going to get a pop. So he does get to the building in Alex Marvez's car. And he gets pissed off, and he's talking about stuff. And he says something I was so happy to hear. We're having a rematch right after the match we had. AEW does not do that. I appreciate that they try to keep things fresh, but there have been more than enough times they should have gone back to a match and gotten 2 out of it or gotten 3 out of it. And you know what? This is one of those times, and they're doing it. And there's a month of build to that. And I love Max saying with the mic, with the camera on it, but no mic, I won in 30 seconds. That's MJF to me. That's the best version of him. I don't want him to be invincible. I don't want what he did with Jay White where he gets taken out and comes back like he's Hogan. That's not MJF. The best MJF is a chicken shit. He's a hell of a wrestler. He's a hell of a talker. But MJF should be Ric Flair in that way. Talk all the trash you want. Be as confident as you can be. Be a heel. Lie. Some truth, but lie. Exaggerate the truth. And in the end, you find a way to win. And what did he talk about to start the promo? The Tiger Driver. I said it as soon as MJF and Osprey interacted the first time. I said it on this show. MJF's got to be the one to push Osprey to use that move. MJF will do anything to win. Swerve will do anything to win and is the world champion. The best in that company. Jericho is a former champion. Mox is a former champion. Hell, throw Punk into that conversation. You do what you got to do to get to the top. That's what Will's got to learn. His move is not banned. He just took it out of his repertoire because he injured Bryan Danielson. And I'll say it again. The last person that Osprey should talk to is Bryan Danielson before that match. And Danielson's got to go, you got to do this. It beat me. I'm still here, but it beat me. Max will go all the way. You need to go all the way. You did it against me, and you beat me. And look where you are now. The fact that Max opened his promo last night, talking about that Tiger Driver, that's how Osprey's got to beat him. Other than the hotel stuff, good build, happy they're doing the rematch. Let's talk about Bryan Danielson here. Two things. Number one, we did not see the full interview. I'll get to that in a second. They showed a clip of him talking to Renee, which is like 2 degrees of me because they did Talking Smack before I did. And the beloved version. I get that. But they're just talking. And I think it's, part of Renee's thing. And then Jeff comes in. And you saw RJ watching from the side. And Jeff comes in. And he talks to Bryan Danielson. And he talks about how he was the right guy to win. But if he's going to beat Swerve, he's got to get better. Like, he challenged Bryan. You need to be a better place mentally. You need to be in a better place physically. You got to heal up. You got to get ready to go. And it was such a good promo. This version of Jeff Jarrett, this self-reflective veteran who's been through it all, who knows what you have to do, who knows what he's done, but at this point right now has become this conscious of AEW. And it's almost like he had to do all those other things, with the majority of his career being as a heel, to go, you know what? I did all those things. It doesn't mean others have to. And I'm not going to let people go. It's almost like he doesn't want to let people go down the path that he did. And thinking of his friend, thinking of Owen, has allowed him to have some perspective on how to handle things. Now, the great part about all of this is because it's Jeff Jarrett, is we're all expecting at any point in time him to hit a baby face with a guitar, and it's all about Jeff. And you know what? That probably will happen at some point. But that could happen in 6 months. That could happen down the road when he's already almost the idea of what they wanted to do with Cole and MJF. MJF let his guard down that much that the whole time Adam Cole was pressing all the buttons. It didn't come through in execution, whatever. But I feel like when Jeff does turn, at that point, he will be such a long-term babyface that it will matter. And he tells Bryan that. And Bryan says to Renee, I got some work to do. And I like that Jeff's story arc that started at the Owen is continuing and still matters. And then we see him come out later and be the conscience, be the enforcer, Be the guy that's not going to let things go the wrong way. And let him break a guitar in Tennessee because that's Jeff. But then, this morning, they released the full cut. And Renee says, hey, I heard your contract's up soon. And he said, this is very specific wording. My wrestling contract is up on August 1st. Now, there's been talk that, he's got creative and he was on that committee and you can't tweet stuff and all that. I don't know if he's got 2 deals, but he said his wrestling contract is up on August 1st. And he said, I'm not going to MJF it. I'm not going to try and squeeze him out for money. And I believe that. This is the same Bryan Danielson that when he was a WWE talent was on Colt Cabana's podcast and said, don't worry about my shirts. Go buy sustainable cotton or whatever. Like he literally, and Colt's like, what are you doing throwing money away? Colt, who's a t-shirt master, 1 hour tees, pro wrestling tees. He was going like, what are you telling people? And that's Bryan. Bryan doesn't live an extravagant life. He's made a lot of money, but you know what? It's not like he lives the life of that salary. And I believe that the fact that he said, well, Tony talked about it, so I'll talk about it. So now you've added another layer to the story because he's saying this is my last shot. Well, my last shot was I had to win the Owen, and he did. And now he's looking at the main event for the AEW World Championship, a championship that has evaded him. A championship that he's saying, this is it, because I'm not going to wrestle full-time after this year. And now you're saying the contract's up. So now he has a reason to walk away. And I think that's the story. Swerve can finish Bryan Danielson as a babyface. He could put that on his resume. I sent him out. You can tell that story. Now, I think what should happen, because they've addressed it, because they put it on their social media, is that Tony Khan and Bryan Danielson should have some kind of segment on a show where there is a handshake agreement. And Bryan will say, listen, I know we didn't plan it this way. I wouldn't have even, I wouldn't have known. And he undercuts himself sometimes. I wouldn't even expected to be in this spot. And here I am. They have a handshake agreement because that's what Bryan Danielson would do. They have a handshake agreement that will last. And think of the CM Punk thing. His contract ended on that night. The handshake agreement is I am done. I am done regardless of what happens at Wembley. You can do that. And here's why I think you can do that. You give him the handshake agreement. Swerve now has the chance to send Bryan away. Not in a bad way, but to get that win. To say he beat Bryan Danielson, who missed Wembley last year. Swerve can say he did that. That's on his resume forever. And Bryan Danielson gets to go out in the main event and listen, he's lost plenty of big matches before. This would just be another one, and they'll have a great match. But I think he's going to win. And if you tell the story of Bryan Danielson winning the championship at Wembley, and then say that on Wednesday, he's going to give up that title because he's done. His contract is up. That can happen. And without getting into specifics, and I'm not going to do spoilers, and I'm asking everybody right now if you know the results of Rampage and who won the Royal Rampage Battle Royal for the number one contender spot at Grand Slam, which is after Wembley, do not put it in there. And if you do, we'll ban you. So just don't do it. Because it is a big... I get it. Rampage, typically not a lot of big stuff happens. When a world title shot is on the line and you don't want to know the answer, you don't want to know the outcome, let's keep it away. Tomorrow night is going to be an important show to watch. But I would have Danielson win it all in and come out on that Wednesday. And whoever, hopefully a babyface, is next up and has won that number one contender spot, says, wait a minute, you can't leave. You still have to face me. And that keeps him around. And it's almost like Danielson can't leave with the championship. Too many people will talk him back into staying around. Now, the date that's been circled for a lot of us, and maybe for Danielson himself, is October 12th. Tacoma, Washington, Wrestle Dream. It's where he's from. I would have him keep the title till October 12th. I would have Swerve get his rematch. Two guys from the Pacific Northwest having a match at a show called Wrestle Dream. And that is how you send Bryan Danielson out as a full-time performer. It's a good story. They have a really nice road that they can take to make a big deal out of this and making their championship mean a lot. And you can make some people along the way. We'll see if they do that. I'm not saying they have to. There's other ways to go. But I would love that to happen. Now, we're running a little late on time here. Tony Mariah. Nice to see Mariah, get reintroduced. She's the glamour. I love Tony making the surprise after it was supposed to be her coming out. Mariah, and then and that look on her, you're going to have to kill me. And you know what I liked? I told you before I liked that MJF ran. I liked that Mariah, who was as vicious as can be in the heel turn. They did the Shawn and Marty Rumble spot, and they were, or KO and Sammy for a younger audience. They're going at it. They hate each other. Mariah always had the plan. Now Tony is furious, and her look and the way she delivered those words, and they had to be separated. You don't do that security separation too much, but you should absolutely do it in a situation like that. Hell of a build. Probably the best story in AEW if you look about the entire year. Maybe the best long-term story in wrestling, right up there with Punk and Drew. And maybe better than that, because more has happened. Really good stuff. Now, the one other thing I'd like to bring up from last night's show, the return of Britt Baker to the ring. 10 months. 10 months since we last saw her wrestle at Penn State against Chris Statlander in a losing effort for the TBS title. She's in there with Hikaru Shida, who won and challenged her, and it seems like we have heel Shida, which, good call. Nice, solid 10-minute match. I think Britt's still kind of getting her legs under her, so hopefully she gets a couple more matches. They don't have house shows, this is when you need to get work. And I'm sure she's working out and all that. And then Mercedes comes out and runs her down. You want that match at All In, and you're not going to get it. And that wasn't the end of the segment. Hey, Dom, can we take everybody back to 1 week ago and something I suggested? She should have security with her at all times, protecting her. Another way to do that is to give her a big heater. Perhaps Camille, former NWA Women's Champion, who has been rumored to go to WWE or go to AEW, who is absolutely menacing, tall, dangerous, strong, and would be a real good heater for Mercedes. You can come back to me. After Mercedes completed her speech last night, Britt was attacked from behind by Camille. Camille Brickhouse, former NWA champion. Tall, strong, hell of a look. Hit a bunch of big woman moves. Big man, big woman moves. Looked damn good. And then she walked up the ramp and stood there with Mercedes. And Mercedes, after that right there, had her heater. Mercedes, who should never want to get her hands dirty, who should have security because she's a CEO, who should have an insurance policy, who should have backup for all the shit she talks, she's got it now in Camille. I had thought Camille signed to AEW. I know there was some WWE rumors there. She's in the right spot. So now, because they'll do Mercedes and bread it all in, you have an out. An out for Britt losing her pay-per-view comeback match. You have Camille. That's fine. They can get back to it. And you could do Camille and Britt at some point in time. The only thing I didn't like, and I don't think I'm the only one to mention this. I think our friend Tom said it. I don't always agree or like agreeing with Bully, but he said it as well when he was on Busted Open with us this morning. Camille's tall. Camille is a brick house because she looks like one. Mercedes is short. Britt is short. Not in a bad way. I'm just saying that's how they are. And Mercedes comes out with a hat that adds about that much to her visual height and heels. Tom, can you put that picture up again of those two? You just look at that. Mercedes probably comes up to her nose. She's even shorter than that compared to Camille. And that's what the visual should look like. So that's a mistake. I don't think anybody's going to go up to Mercedes and go, can you wear those flats maybe instead? Because you want to make your heater look as dangerous. You want to make your insurance policy, your security, your heavy look as dangerous, look as menacing, look as ominous as possible. And, you know, they did the thing where they showed them backstage and taking the pictures. And Mercedes kind of like, there was a sign of respect, of fear, of thank goodness she's on my side. But that comes across even better when Camille stands that much taller over her. I made the comparison this morning. It's Shawn and Diesel. Shawn having to jump up for the high five. Diesel, it's all he did for a long time. And him not talking, and we know Nash can talk, but at that time, and he jokes like that's all they told me to do. And he would just beat people up on the outside. And that's all he was for a time. And that's what Camille can be. But make her look head and shoulders, literally above everybody else. They mentioned on commentary last night she had made an appearance before. It's her and Layla Hirsch. And it was the visual we should have seen last night. Layla's 5'2", 5'1". Camille's, 5'9", 5'10". And they showed him in the ring. And it looked good. It made her look like a giant because she is. That's how you change that presentation just a little bit. I get Mercedes has a look and heels and all that stuff. But that's a tweak that could have worked. Finally here, after we finished up yesterday, it came out that Amazon, according to the NBA, that Warner Brothers discovered they didn't match. Not a money match, but more of what can be provided. And then NBA was like, okay, we're excited to go with Amazon. And Amazon's like, we're happy to be there. And then TNT's like, wait a minute. We think we matched and we're going to take further action. They're going to go to court over this. So it's not done yet. And listen, whether it be the overruns, whether it be limited commercial interruption, whether it be at Comic-Con this weekend that there's going to be tie-ins with AEW and Warner Brothers, with the stuff they're doing with Adult Swim, which is under that banner. There are so many signs that this TV deal and a new deal is going to happen. But this NBA thing is certainly hanging over it all. Now, look. Yeah, Turner had NBA and AEW at the same time. But both of those contracts are going to go up. And I know I think tennis or something else that they're working into. So they're spending a lot of money. Now, they have made a shit ton of cuts since that merger. shows, people, and it happens. It's unfortunate it happens. So there's been a lot of cost saving. Now, wrestling as a whole, compared to regular television, is cheaper. And it's live. And AEW has performed well. I've said this over and over again. Wrestling fans may compare the Monday rating to the Wednesday rating, to the Tuesday rating to the Wednesday rating. They're not worried about that. Monday Night Raw is not on the same night as AEW Dynamite. AEW Dynamite is not on the same night as NXT. Turner, Warner Brothers, they are worried about the competition that AEW has on Wednesdays. They do well against that competition. They've been a number one show in that competition. They've been a top 5 show in that competition, within that competition. The demo is strong. If you just look at the numbers that AEW is putting out there on their own, without comparing them to WWE, TV networks will call those good numbers because they are. Networks would love to have that property. What AEW is going to get paid for it, we will see. Supposedly that deal's not up to the end of this year. WWE waited longer than they typically do to announce the Netflix deal. Now, obviously, that doesn't start till January, but they had announced it later than they had TV deals in the past. AEW should be in no rush. And if nothing's officially done yet, then they won't be. But I don't think they want to be announcing this when the Olympics are on. You probably want to avoid the start of the football. You want to find a nice spot to announce it, and you know what? It'll probably happen on a Wednesday. So they can take that right into Wednesday Dynamite and promotion and make a big deal of it. That's what it should be. And I think it will happen, but I do wonder how long they have to wait for this other shoe to drop. Also, I have a plan that I think makes sense. Turner has started a social media campaign, and I don't know how this is supposed to work or get the NBA's attention. Not about necessarily the basketball, but to make sure that inside the NBA continues. Because if they don't have a TV deal, they don't have the rights to the NBA. Is Turner going to put on a broadcast for a sport that they don't cover when they're not a sports station? Like ESPN, sure, we'll do a Sunday NFL countdown and not have games on at 1 o'clock on a Sunday. But they know people are tuning in for their show. TNT is not going to go, well, come back here because we're a sports leader. No, you're not. You're TNT drama. You have wrestling. You have scripted shows. You have reruns. You have comedy. It's not a sports channel. It has some sports, but it's not a sports channel. My solution to this is very simple. Inside the NBA becomes inside the AEW, and you're just running after Dynamite on Wednesdays. And Chuck and Kenny and Shaq and Ernie just sit there and talk wrestling. Shaq is a big wrestling fan. Kenny Smith, weird one, was on the bump, is a huge wrestling fan. Chuck is a wrestling fan. Ernie could talk about anything. My buddy Adam Lefko, go look up this on YouTube. When he was a local broadcaster in, I believe, Louisville, did an entire sports broadcast using wrestling references. He's done 2 of those. He did the Signcast about Seinfeld, which went viral, and he did a wrestling one as well. I got to work with Adam a lot at Bleacher Report. I'm so happy to see what he's doing. Now, I know that's very tongue-in-cheek in what I'm saying, but I would love to see it once. And I know they've had some AEW integration there before and titles and all that stuff. And it was on the set of their show. I would love to see inside AEW with those guys. Just do it once. But I like following that stuff. I like following the business of wrestling, and I don't engage in the people who think they know about it or the ratings discussions that don't really matter all that much. By the way, the president going live at 8 o'clock last night, or whatever the hell he did, I didn't watch it. The President of the United States, I should say, for those of you that are not Americans or don't live in the United States. Biden went live last night. I say he went live like he's doing YouTube. I'm going to go live. Make sure you tune in. Anyway, he went up at 8 o'clock last night. Now, I believe, and I didn't mention Jericho Suzuki, which was a better match than I expected, a nice chop fest. Jericho, I believe, was the first match or first entrance once Biden was done. So, the ratings trend will be interesting to watch because it's not the typical, well, Big Bang was here and that starts us high and then we go from there. It was a president getting out of the race in a major historical news situation, and people were going to watch that. And then it was over still within the first hour of Dynamite, and then there's Jericho and Suzuki. So I'm really interested to see what that trend line looks like and what the quarter hours look like. By the way, shout out to WrestleNomics to make that happen. I was on with Brandon Thurston and John Pollock yesterday. Talked about some stuff I've talked about here. And I tell people, are you still talking about this? When people ask me to come on and I like them, I'm going to answer the questions they ask me. And we talked about a lot of stuff that we talked about here, but a lot of other stuff as well. So go back and check that out. I really like those guys. It's nice to have some level-headed wrestling journalism out there. And those guys do it. And Brandon's work with the ratings and all that stuff and the stuff he has to take in the comment section, he does a very good job. I love studying that kind of stuff. And John's one of the most level-headed, smart wrestling journalists out there. And I know I've said no to people about doing some appearances and all. I wanted to go do that show. So go please check that out. And go please subscribe to thewrestlingmatchshow.com. Make sure you definitely check out the membership starting at $2.99. Legendary Yobi, he's a member. He's here today. WWE for Life's here today. What's going on? You now have emojis that people are posting if you're a member, but they start at $2.99, 3 tiers, right above Todd, the mid-card, and the Mat event. But if you sign up for any of those tiers, starting at $2.99, you will get to watch SummerSlam with me right here next weekend, thewrestlingmatchshow.com. You will indeed get to do that next weekend if you sign up on those membership tiers. All of the information is available at thewrestlingmatchshow.com, what you get. There's a mix of all kinds of things depending on your tier, from private AMAs to watch-alongs of live shows to extra bonus content to merch stuff to AMA, private AMAs. You name it, it is there. So go check that out. And please, make sure you subscribe, make sure you share, make sure you comment. Today is Thursday. Friday, I will be on Busted Open once again with the new TNA champion, Nick Nemeth, the former Dolph Ziggler, and Thunder Rosa, hosting with both of them. That should be a fun show. And I'll be back with you here at 1 p.m. Eastern. We'll look at where SmackDown's at, where SummerSlam's at. Maybe we'll have some more wrestling news. There never seems to be a lack of it. Yobi, you're a member. I'll answer this. What is your dream match you always wanted to see? Oh, my God. CM Punk and Austin. That's for the build. For the build. There's probably more. That just came to me off the top of my head because if you go back to the archives, and I know you were here, I talked all about Punk and Austin and some of the teases that have happened throughout the years. I think a match is based on not putting it in the ring only, but what the build would be to it. We used to do that Ultimate show. I always like to talk about that. Well, think of the promos. Think of how they could build this thing. Okada and Cena. I know a lot of people go Tanahashi and Cena, but I think they're the same. Okada and Roman Reigns. Love to see that. Am I missing any that I really like? Seth and Osprey. Those are a couple off the top of my head. We should do a show on that one time. Anyway, I do got to run. I appreciate everybody being with me. Make sure you're with us every single weekday at 1 p.m. Eastern. Follow us on social media, WrestlingMat23. We got IG stories going up. We got Reels going up. We got shorts here at the YouTube channel. I'm going to post something right after we're done here talking about Bobby Lashley and some of the creative pitches that didn't go anywhere. But please go check that out. Please share when you're watching, whether you're watching live or whatever. We have the most interactive pro wrestling show out there. I love talking to you guys, whether it's live on this show, whether it's in the comments, whether it's on social media. If you're tweeting me, any of that stuff, you're going to get responses as long as you're not a dick. Just don't be a dick. I like to have good, you don't have to always compliment me, but if we're having a nice conversation, that's all I want. You guys usually provide that most of the time, 99% of the time, and if you don't, we get rid of those people. But thank you very much for joining me today. I will see you tomorrow and each and every weekday here at the Wrestling Show, MattShow.com. We will be back tomorrow to talk about wrestling even more. See you tomorrow, 1 p.m. Eastern, right here at the WrestlingMattShow.com.